Right, fantastic to be joined today by Rob Joseph from Anti. You've got a prototype here. This is, to give people a bit of an idea, they'll have seen this in the workshop anyway, but this is a beanie that you wear on your head to protect yourself. Yeah?
Yeah.
But the actual eventual scale model will be much sleeker and cooler and funkier.
Far more. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And who's going to wear this?
Who's going to wear it?
Yeah. Who's it for?
Snowboarders initially. So there's a big market there within the snow that we think we can tap into because it's not you're not required to wear a helmet in the snow, but a lot of people do anyway, and helmets just they're the most annoying in the snow. So we're going that way.
But young kids on bicycles could wear it?
Absolutely. Skateboarders, BMX riders, mountain bike riders, wakeboarders too. There's a lot of different ways we go with it. Medical helmets as well, falls risk patients. They have some atrocious helmets they currently wear, and ours will be better than that too.
So what makes this cool is that it's a soft helmet, not a hard helmet.
Yep, so it's a beanie that's as safe as a helmet, so it's soft and conforming and fits to your unique head shape. Folds up nice and small, smaller than this one does, but it folds, it bends, everything like that, and just feels a lot nicer than a regular helmet. But
the essence of it is it's made from a particular material that on impact hardens and provides more of a hard shell.
Yes, correct. And then it goes back to its soft state directly after. And we've paired that with a couple other things that haven't been seen yet. So that's how the material itself, the non-Newtonian material that hardens, is not our IP at all, but the way that we're using it is ours.
Fantastic. All right, let's get through our questions. We talk to the students about this notion of a resource profile. It's important that there are certain things that you and or your team has in trying to move this idea forward. So in terms of social capital, do you think you know everyone you need to know to be able to move this forward?
Not yet.
Who do you need to know still?
So we need to know more snowboarders and snow skiers. They're the people we need to know more of. But I think we know the people that can allow us to know them at this stage. So we may not be at the exact people that we know just yet, but we know the people who can put us in contact with them. So we're most of the way there, and when the time's right, we'll start contacting them.
Yeah, cool. What about human capital? Now we're talking about your expertise or experience and knowledge in and around this area. Is there more knowledge and expertise that you need to sort of move the prototype at this stage forward to production?
Not so much. I'm a medical engineering student. I've spent about a year and a half understanding helmets now, and they're not as complex as people might think they are. And I'm doing my thesis on helmet testing. So in terms of helmet science, we're pretty sorted. We've got an incredible industrial designer who helps with the prototype because industrial designers are far better at that kind of thing than we are. In terms of business knowledge, could be a different story. We're working on trying to get better. We've gone to all the workshops, all the seminars, trying to learn as much as we can, and that's definitely a learning process. But the science side we have down at least.
Yeah, cool. We talk about financial capital, not necessarily just in dollars and cents, but in terms of your ability to access the key resources that you would need to move forward. So where are you at in that regard, being able to access what you need?
We have most of the access of it pretty well, most of the things we need. The one big thing is manufacturing, unfortunately. And so the people who do the special material, they're over in America. They don't let us go there. Well, they might eventually, but they won't let us talk to them directly. We have to go through a representative in Australia. So that's a very long and slow and expensive process, unfortunately. But in terms of everything else, we've got access to makers of the other materials. We can get to China. We can do all that kind of thing. So that's not so bad. But money, of course, is always a big question in this kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. We talk about legitimacy, about how any idea has to have sufficient legitimacy to be able to succeed. The first one being cognitive legitimacy, and that is that your idea has this sort of taken for grantedness in people's minds. So if we're walking down the street, any challenges there, do you think about throwing a soft helmet on someone's head to protect them?
Yeah, well, people don't believe it. Funnily enough, Steve Baxter told us in front of a large crowd that he thought it was BS. Because naturally people don't think that we've been trained for a very long time to think that hard objects are the way that we are protected. Cars are hard, helmets are hard, all that kind of thing, but it's just not really the case anymore. It used to be 10, 20 years ago, but with this kind of stuff we can change that. So the legitimacy is one that we're going to really have to work to build with people, and we've got a few different ways of doing that.
Okay. Socio-political legitimacy is really talking about the key stakeholders that would be needed to approve of this particular idea. So whether they be regulatory or other people who might promote it in society. Are there any challenges for you there?
So one thing is the regulatory side of it all, which is the EN 1077 standard, 1078 as well. But the good thing about it is the helmet, it works. So the regulatory is nothing that we're really worried about at this stage, because if the helmet works, it'll pass regulation. The more political side of it is the people to approve it are the people on the mountain.
Yep.
People who, if we can find the right people to really endorse us from an early stage, it's not such a big deal, but it's getting it to those people first, building their trust with them, and so people approve it on the mountain, essentially.
Yeah, cool. We talk about environments, and we try to bring the environment back to the level of the actual idea itself. So we first talk about the selective environment. So where we're thinking about any factors which are directly working against your development of this. So are there any specific factors germane to this particular idea that are difficult for you to overcome?
The trust is one, of course. The unavailability of materials is another one, seeing they're fairly selective with who they give it to.
Yeah.
Being in Brisbane as well, there's less snow sports pros around,
Yes.
less investors as well. So getting the idea across in Brisbane is very different to the way we do it in Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah.
But as a general thing, there's not a whole lot that stops us.
Okay.
But there are some things, of course.
And the reverse of that is the ecological environment. So to what extent are you able to sort of identify specific resources that are feeding and supporting the development of this idea?
Brisbane's a fantastic place. We've got so many cool advisors, and that's the reason why we haven't made a move, is because we have pretty well everyone we need right here, except for the people on the snow. So we've got the industrial designers in Brisbane, all of our business mentors from Idera and Vol Performance, they're all in Brisbane as well. And there's lots of great funding programs, initiatives from the government as well as the university, QT Blue Box and Foundry. They do a fantastic job. We're in the UQ Accelerator at the moment. Don't tell anyone. But yeah, so there's tons of resources around us in Brisbane particularly that really help us out.
Cool. In thinking about the environment, we try to see to the extent to which students and entrepreneurs can make sense of how that environment changes. I mentioned the keyboard to you before as an example of how something that hasn't been able to be challenged by other new variations. So what your team, to what extent do you feel like you've got a really good handle on other past variations that have tried to come into this space and have succeeded or not succeeded?
Luckily in helmets there's not been a whole lot, so it's fairly easy to be across those. 10 years ago there was no snowboard helmet market, and now more than 70% of people on the mountain do. So there's that environment that's working for us, as well as there's been a few little innovations within helmets. MIPS is a big one, which is a rotation system for the brain, so when you hit the ground it sort of moves a little bit around.
Okay.
But in essence, there's been a lot of portable helmets on Kickstarter. Kickstarter's a great resource for us to sort of go through and see every helmet anyone's ever made.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, since the 60s, they haven't really changed. They're still just a hard plastic on the outside, some big cooler foam in between that sort of squishes when your head hits the ground.
Yeah. Okay, cool. In terms of value creation, we look at three different processes: the value chain, more traditional, taking raw inputs, manufacturing, producing and marketing a high-class output. Value shop, using your existing resources in ways that are unique to solve different problems. And value networks, so using social media and community-based processes to generate value. Which of those do you think are most relevant to your process?
All three, I think, as a funny thing. We are taking raw materials and pushing out a product from that. But there's also, we're using materials that are actually widely used within protection, but using them in a very different way.
Okay.
So the materials that we use are commonly used in chest plates and arm guards.
Yep.
They're great for distributing load, but when your head's hitting the ground, you really want to be absorbing a lot of force rather than just distributing it, because your brain's still going to hit the ground at the same amount of pace. So we're changing the way that we're using that material. So it's both the first and second one. The third one, of course, networks are massive. Snow sport in particular is an incredibly cultured thing, and so once you're cool with the cool guys, then you're in.
Yeah, cool.
But that's one thing that's going to be really big for us.
Fantastic. In a perfect world, it'd be, in terms of sustainability, it'd be great if your entry into a marketplace could actually have other people winning, not everyone losing. We call this coaction. So, can you sort of see how other people are going to benefit from this beyond hopefully the end user?
Yes.
Any other people that win or at least don't get harmed as a result of your hopeful entry?
It depends on the way we go about it. Because we've got this really cool material that we're building up, and it can be used in a number of different ways, not just the snow helmets. But if a company approaches it at some stage and goes, hey, we'd love to use your material within our beanie, so say if Oakley or Burton was to come to us and we'd work out a licensing deal or a joint venture, that'd be fantastic because that's sort of them helping their brand, but unfortunately they're the big guys, of course. We don't think we'll capture the whole market. We think actually we'll probably be quite polarising in that, and some people will go to traditional helmets harder than they would have before.
Sure.
Now that they've been given an option, and some people are going one way, some people are going the other. But it'd be great. We don't want to see anyone in our business or anything like that, but all, of course, at the same time, we're doing something very different. So if we need to go and really go hard and change the way it all happens, then that's fine. But
cool. We get the students to contemplate this notion of R and K. R is you're at a very short-term focus, you're borrowing, you're stealing, you're begging, versus K, which is long-term, you know exactly what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and you're going to want to scale this thing right up. So where are you guys at this stage?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
Bit of both. We're at the stage now where we can stop thinking, next week or the week after. We're looking, sort of 6 months down the track. But at the same time, our day-to-day operations are incredibly important. There's things that happened yesterday that change the way we do things tomorrow.
Yep.
And so it's a constantly evolving process, but we have to keep our eyes on both. We can't be short-sighted, because then if we lose track of what we can do later on, and then we end up in 6 months with a cool product but no marketing, or great amount of marketing but we haven't got a solid product yet. So there's a bit of both.
Yeah, cool.
Bit of both.
And in terms of the product itself, is it a specialist product or a generalist product? So is it a certain subset of helmet wearers that would be wearing this, or is it pretty much anyone who wears a helmet, you want to have a crack at them?
It depends on the market. We think in the snow we're far more broad. So it'll initially be sort of the early adopters with the adoption curve and everything, or the younger market often as well in the snow. And we think skiers will pick it up as well, because a lot of sort of old school skiers still don't wear helmets. And so we think we'll pick up a couple of interesting spots within the market,
yep.
But we shouldn't be terribly polarising in that way. However, when we go towards the BMX market or skate market, which we've chatted to a lot of guys about, it's essentially going to be the same helmet, just a bit cooler in terms of temperature. But they'll use it, but the guys who cycle 60k on the way to work won't.
Yeah.
We'd say actually they'd be right against it. But there's that, sort of quarter of the market there where, guys are hitting skate parks and dirt jumps, and they'll be into this kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Now my favourite question is about energy. So things that are beyond your control, things you can't own, but nevertheless that you can strategically use to position the development of and hopeful success of your idea. So are there some forms of energy out there that you think you can naturally sort of tap into?
Yes. So we're jumping on right at the sort of just before the peak of the wave of helmets being popular in snow sports. Like I said before, 10 years ago, there was no real snow helmet market. You had to go buy a push bike helmet from Kmart kind of thing.
Yep.
So that market is really increasing, and like we saw with the push bikes, it became illegal to not wear one in Australia, and eventually it will get to that stage on the slopes. Or whether it does or doesn't is a different thing, but it's becoming more and more common that people wear them every single day, particularly in Europe. You find more people don't wear helmets riding push bikes than they do on the slopes, whereas it's the opposite in Australia. So there's that natural wave of everyone's trying to be more protected and safer and live longer, all that kind of thing. But at the same time, helmets aren't progressing at that same rate. So I think we're sort of jumping in on that curve nice and early.
Fashion, is there any fashion energy out there for you?
Absolutely. There's some helmet companies actually, they make a skin that goes on the top of your helmet that makes it look like a beanie.
Yeah.
So, why don't you just put a helmet that's beanie that's as safe as a helmet?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that, and we can see a lot more. There's companies like Sandbox and Nutcase and even Oakley and Burn to a degree,
Yep.
they're starting to make helmets that are different, that they look different. They're not the old skate type half-shell helmet. So there's a lot of fashion going on, you know, mixing and matching it with your outfits and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that there as well.
Cool. Now, in terms of a how-to statement, what are we asking them to do? How to what?
One thing that'll be really interesting to get an opinion on is how do we build trust? Because like we were saying before, people intrinsically don't trust a soft helmet. It makes no sense to most people, which is fine. And that's going to be crucial to our business. And the good thing is that it does work. The helmet works. We can demonstrate that all day long. But we need to be able to show people that it works. And without thousands of people being on the slopes going, hey, try this.
Yep.
How do we build with a smaller team, with possibly some really smart online campaigns, that kind of thing? How do we build the trust in people who have never seen the product before? But so then to the point where they have the confidence to go online, buy one, and it shows up on their doorstep in a week.
Yeah, I think that's a great how-to statement because that'll definitely draw in pretty much all the elements of the framework. So that's a good one. In terms of the sort of, you're going to get a whole bunch of 2-minute videos to watch. What would make you happy? What would make you sad? You want someone sitting there real serious, saying, you want someone to have a bit of fun with this?
Yeah, we have fun with this.
Yeah.
Our pitch, I get hit over the head with a 12mm ply, and it's fun.
Yep.
While it's helmets and there is a very safety serious part of our pitch, we're just 2 boys from Brisbane, or 3 boys from Brisbane now, playing around in the helmet space where we've really got no business in being.
Yep.
So a bit of humour is something that we really do, and it's very easy to do within this space too. So keep it lighthearted, but keep it serious enough for people to believe it. Just don't let it become a joke.
Yep.
But it's good, really good fun. There's no reason why you can't be super creative with something like this.
Yeah, cool. Lovely. Rob, thanks very much, and we'll look forward to seeing what students can come up with for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.